Weddings are expensive, and depending on where you live and what you want yours to look like, they can easily become really expensive. But in today's video, I'm sharing some of my top tips for reducing your overall wedding costs without making it look cheap. Welcome back to my channel, Hitched Academy. My name is Kimberly Rhodes, and I'm a professional wedding planner and have been since 2011. And now I'm on YouTube sharing some of my best tips and tricks so you can plan your own wedding like a pro. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are released. If you've watched my video for the first 5 things you should do now that you're engaged, you know that figuring out your wedding budget is a very critical part of the early planning process and really something you should be doing before you start spending any money. I will link to that video below in case you missed it. But for most couples, I would say 99% of people, what they imagined spending on their wedding and what they imagined their wedding to look like don't go together. There's usually a big difference between how much you thought you were going to spend and how much that dream wedding really cost. So for most people, there's this space in the middle where you have to figure out what you can cut or get rid of in order to make those numbers match. And of course, I have a few ideas. But first, if you want to get my list of all the things that go into a wedding budget, including some things people often forget, make sure to go to the link that I have below for a free download of my top wedding budget tips. The first thing to know is that weddings are made up of 2 different kinds of expenses: fixed expenses or costs and variable expenses or costs. So fixed costs are those that are going to remain the same regardless of your guest count. So that would be things like your DJ, your band, your photographer, your videographer, and often your venue rental costs. So things like that won't change regardless if you're having 50 people in attendance or 150 people in attendance. People like your DJ are providing a service. You're paying them for their time, and they don't care if there's 50 people there or 150 people there. Their service is going to cost the same. Those are fixed costs. Variable costs for the wedding are things that change or vary as the number of guests changes. So that would be things like your catering bill or your number of invitations, slices of cake, even postage. Those costs will go up or down depending on the number of people in attendance. So my biggest tip for saving overall on your wedding budget is to reduce the number of guests. That will change all those variable costs. So the fewer guests that you are inviting, the fewer invitations you need, and the fewer stamps that you need, the fewer slices of cake that you need, and even every 8 to 10 people that you reduce off your guest list, that's an extra tablecloth, an extra floral centerpiece. If you're having to rent in things like plates and forks and glasses and tablecloths, all of those things come down when the guest count comes down as well. So that is my first biggest tip, is really think about your guest list. I know it's terrible, but if you think about all of your guests with a big $sign above their head, it makes it a little bit easier to trim that guest list down because there really are financial implications for doing so. So I know figuring out your guest list is challenging, and I'm going to have a video on that next week. So make sure to click that subscribe button so that you know when that video comes out. My second tip for saving overall on your wedding budget is to think about having your wedding during off-peak times. So that could mean off-peak times of the year, off-peak days of the week, or even off-peak times of day. So let's first start with off-peak times of the year. Depending on where you live, peak wedding season can be a little bit different. So if you live up north, where the winters are very cold but the summers are beautiful, typically summer is going to be a more popular wedding month. I'm here in Dallas in the south. The summers are a little hot. So July and August for us is typically a slower time of year. The thing to know is there can sometimes, not always, but sometimes there can be differences in price for getting married during those non-peak times of year. So, for example, if the summer in your market is always popular and always busy, the venue is not going to have any flexibility with pricing, because if you don't want that date, someone else will take it. But that might not be the case in January or February if those are off-peak months. So again, not all the time, but sometimes there can be price reductions for either venues or some vendors when you're choosing to have your wedding on off-peak times of year. The other off-peak time to consider would be day of the week. So Saturday evenings are the most popular wedding day, but at some venues and for some vendors, if you are choosing to get married on, let's say, a Friday night or a Sunday night or even a Thursday evening, those prices can come down, again, because they're not as popular and they're not always going to just automatically get booked. So some venues will reduce the price for, let's say, a Wednesday evening wedding or a Thursday evening wedding, knowing that if you don't book it, it might not get booked at all. And finally, the time of day can sometimes affect your overall pricing. So if you're having a daytime wedding, you may or may not see differences in the venue rental fees, but you'll likely spend less money in food and beverage because people drink less during the day than they do in the evening. And for off-peak times, you don't necessarily have to feed everyone a full meal. So if you're having a brunch wedding, the cost of eggs and bacon and mimosas is much different than the cost of steak and beer and wine. So keep in mind, if you're open to other times of the day, you also can see some cost savings there. So I'm curious, would you ever consider having an off-peak wedding, meaning time of the year or time of day, even day of the week? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. Another way to save money overall in your wedding is to really think about your menu choices. So your catering costs are generally going to be the most expensive line item of your entire budget. What you're feeding people, what you're giving them to drink, typically accounts for the largest amount of your average budget. What you choose to serve can make a big difference. So obviously filet mignon is a different price than chicken. So thinking through those menu options can really make a big difference in your overall bottom line. Same thing with what you're serving people to drink. Is it beer and wine or is it a full bar with premium liquor? Those two things have different price points, so thinking about your menu choices and the costs that are implicated because of them can be a big cost savings. The only way you can have everything you've possibly dreamed of for your wedding is to have an unlimited budget. And let's be honest, nobody has that. Even my planning clients who might be dealing with multiple six figures, they still have a budget. They still have to prioritize what's important to them and let other things go. So my last tip for really stretching that wedding budget is to think through your priorities and let the rest go. That might mean for you just want the event to look beautiful. Awesome. That means you need to put money into floral and rentals and lighting, and you might have to let the band or DJ be one of the less expensive items on your budget. If, on the other hand, everyone having just a great time is your priority, that means you should put more money into your entertainment and maybe just have a less expensive menu. So my tip is truly think about what is important to you, what you want to spend that money on, and let the rest go. If you're not quite sure of the things that go into a wedding budget or that you should be considering, click on my link below for my wedding budget breakdown. I'm giving you a list of everything that should go into your wedding budget, including some things that people often forget. So that is at the link below. You can download that. It's my whole list of everything that we include for our wedding clients here at my company. Thanks for joining me at my Hitched Academy channel. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for more real wedding inspiration, check out our Hitched Events Instagram account where we share beautiful images from our clients' beautiful events. Thanks so much, and I will see you next week.